Have you ever sat in a courtroom and listened as your own child tried to convince strangers that you had lost your mind? I have. The worst part wasn't hearing my daughter tell everyone I was crazy. It was watching people believe her until one unexpected voice changed everything. What happened in that courtroom didn't just expose the truth. It destroyed the lies my daughter had spent months building. But before I tell you what the judge said, you need to understand how the woman I raised became the person willing to erase me from her life. My name is Margaret Collins. I'm 59 years old, born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. For 34 years, I worked as an elementary school teacher. My students used to tell me I had endless patience. My neighbors described me as dependable. I volunteered at church, baked cookies for every neighborhood fundraiser, and spent most of my adult life believing that family came before everything else. I was widowed 8 years ago when my husband, Daniel, passed away after a sudden heart attack. Losing him nearly broke me, but my daughter, Emily, gave me a reason to keep moving. At least, that's what I believed back then. Emily was my only child. I sacrificed vacations, promotions, and countless dreams so she could attend college without crushing debt. I emptied my savings more than once because I believed helping your child wasn't a burden, it was a privilege. When Emily married Jason and moved to Cincinnati, I thought our family was growing stronger. Instead, it quietly began falling apart. At first, the changes were small. Emily stopped calling every Sunday. Then she stopped answering my texts. Birthdays became rushed phone calls. Holidays turned into excuses. Whenever I asked if something was wrong, she'd smile and say she was simply busy. I wanted to believe her. A mother usually does. Then one afternoon, my neighbor Susan called me after returning from a shopping trip downtown. "Margaret," she said carefully, "I don't know if I should tell you this." My stomach tightened. She explained she'd run into Emily at a coffee shop. Emily hadn't seen Susan sitting nearby. Susan overheard Emily laughing with friends. One sentence froze my blood. "My mom's getting old," Emily had said. "Honestly, she's becoming mentally unstable. Half the time, she doesn't even know what she's talking about." I laughed when Susan told me. Not because it was funny, because it was too unbelievable to process. Emily had to be joking. She had to be. When I confronted her a few days later, she looked me directly in the eyes and calmly replied, "Mom, maybe people are noticing things before you are." That sentence stayed with me for weeks. I started questioning myself. Was I forgetting things? Was grief finally catching up to me? Or was someone trying very hard to make me doubt my own reality? I had no idea that this was only the beginning of a plan that would eventually place us on opposite sides of a courtroom, where my own daughter would stand before a judge and insist I was no longer capable of making decisions for myself. The weeks after that conversation changed everything. I tried convincing myself Emily's comment had simply come out wrong. Children sometimes say hurtful things without realizing how deeply they cut. I wanted to believe that was all this was. But little incidents began piling up. One afternoon, I went to my bank in Columbus to ask about a withdrawal I didn't recognize. The teller smiled politely before saying, "Your daughter already explained that you've been forgetting some of your recent transactions." I stood there speechless. I had never authorized Emily to speak for me. When I asked how she had gotten involved, the employee apologized and admitted Emily had called earlier that week, saying her mother was becoming confused and that the family was keeping an eye on things. For the first time, I felt genuine fear. Not because I thought I was losing my memory, because someone else was trying to convince the world that I had. Soon afterward, my family doctor mentioned that Emily had contacted the office expressing concern about my mental health. Friends from church started asking gentle questions about how I was feeling. Even neighbors began speaking to me with the kind of sympathy people reserve for someone they believe is slipping away. The rumors spread faster than the truth ever could. Then Emily and Jason suddenly became interested in helping me manage my finances. "Mom," Emily said during one visit, "you don't need the stress anymore. Let us take care of the bills." Jason nodded. "We're only trying to protect you." Protect me? I've been paying my own bills for nearly 40 years without missing a payment. When I politely refused, Emily's expression changed instantly. She wasn't disappointed. She was angry. A few days later, I received certified mail that made my hands shake. Emily had filed a petition asking the court to appoint her as my legal guardian, claiming I was mentally incompetent and incapable of handling my own affairs. I read the papers 3 times. According to the documents, I suffered from severe memory loss, poor judgment, paranoia, and emotional instability. Every accusation felt like reading about a complete stranger. I cried harder that night than I had at Daniel's funeral. A husband can be taken by fate, but losing your daughter while she's still alive, that's a different kind of heartbreak. Thankfully, one person refused to believe the story. My longtime attorney, Linda Brooks, had helped Daniel and me prepare our wills years earlier. After reviewing the court filing, she leaned back in her chair and quietly said, "Margaret, this petition isn't about your health." I looked at her, confused. She slid a folder across the desk. "Tell me honestly," she asked, "how much is your house worth today?" "Nearly $700,000. "And your retirement accounts?" "Close to $900,000. Linda looked directly into my eyes. "I believe someone wants control of your assets, not control of your care." Those words hit me like lightning. For months, I'd been asking whether I was losing my mind. Now I was asking a far more frightening question. What if my own daughter had been building this case against me from the very beginning? And as our court date approached, I realized the biggest test of my life wasn't going to be proving I was sane. It was proving that the daughter I loved had turned my life into evidence against me. The morning of the hearing, I walked into the courthouse in Franklin County, Ohio, feeling like every eye was on me. Emily wouldn't even look at me. Jason sat beside her, whispering into her ear while their attorney organized stacks of paperwork. They looked confident, as if the decision had already been made. My attorney, Linda Brooks, squeezed my hand. "Just tell the truth," she whispered. "The facts are stronger than the rumors." Emily testified first. With tears in her eyes, she told the judge that I had become forgetful, paranoid, and incapable of caring for myself. She claimed I accused people of stealing from me, forgot conversations, and isolated myself from family. Listening to her, I almost didn't recognize the woman she was describing. Then came my turn. I answered every question calmly. I explained my daily routine, my finances, my volunteer work, and the records I had carefully kept for years. Linda presented bank statements showing every transaction I had made myself. She introduced letters from my physician confirming there was no diagnosis of dementia or cognitive impairment. Friends, neighbors, and former coworkers testified that I remained independent, organized, and mentally sharp. Then Linda revealed something none of us expected. Phone records and emails showed that months before filing the petition, Emily had contacted my bank, doctor's office, and even neighbors, repeatedly telling them I was losing my mind. She hadn't been reporting a problem. She had been creating one. The courtroom fell silent. The judge slowly removed his glasses and looked directly at Emily. His voice was calm, but every word carried weight. "Concern for a parent is admirable," he said. "Manufacturing evidence to take control of that parent's life is not." Emily's face turned pale. The judge continued, "This court has seen many families in conflict, but the evidence before me does not show an incompetent woman. It shows an independent citizen whose reputation has been deliberately damaged." Then he looked at me. "Mrs. Collins, this petition is denied." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Months of fear, sleepless nights, and humiliation disappeared in a single sentence. The judge wasn't finished. He ordered that the false claims be entered into the record and warned Emily that any future attempt to misuse the legal system could have serious consequences. Emily finally looked at me, tears running down her face. But they weren't the tears I had spent months hoping to see. They came only after the truth had been exposed. As I walked out of the courthouse, I realized something important. Winning the case didn't give me my daughter back. It gave me something just as valuable: my name, my dignity, and my freedom. Sometimes the deepest betrayal comes from the people you love most. But no lie, no matter who tells it, can survive forever when the truth is supported by courage and evidence.